Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is week 10. So, this week we're going to talk about analysis. Let's, as usual, take a quick look at the syllabus before we do that. Back up to the top. Sorry, I was on today's stuff. So, week 10 results and analysis, quantitative and qualitative, data handout. Um, you should have turned in your method section by the 21st or Sunday. Right now, it's actually the 20th. So, as I'm recording this on the 20th, it's due obviously tomorrow. So, don't forget that if you're watching before. Um, then next week, there's nothing due. The 10th week for this video, week 10, there's nothing due. Just taking note of what we're doing here. But really, what you should be doing, since the method section is already turned in, you'll want to work on those results. That is due on week 11. So, what you're going to see today should help you analyze the work that you've done and should be wrapping up anytime now. Now, before I move forward, let me just say a couple things here, real quick. First of all, if you are way behind, I don't know where you might be in this process, but we need to check in. So, if you are watching this and you see that, oh man, I've written my methods, but I haven't done any other things really. So you'll see the results section due next week. You've got to do the work in order to turn in the results section. And this isn't a surprise, right? We've been talking about doing this since the beginning, so that'll be 11 weeks next time. So make sure that you are keeping up and that you're ready to do this. Um, if you're in a bad spot where you're not ready, we need to talk about it. We need to figure out what we can do to get you there because this needs to progress. I know this is strange because we're not in an in person sort of situation where we can check in every week and hear and go around the room, but it is what it is. And so I need to make sure that you are communicating with me. Now, it could be the case that everybody is right where they're supposed to be, and I would love that. I doubt it though, just from experience. And so if that's you, it's something that we can work through, but I can't help you if you don't let me know. All right. So as soon as you're watching this, if you realize, man, I'm not ready to analyze anything because I haven't collected anything, stop the video and send me an email and let's start the conversation. For everyone else, let's shoot back over. Actually, let me shrink myself so I can still see everything we're doing. So again, this week nothing is due. Next week's results section, and I will have methods feedback to you as soon as I can. So let's zip down here to week 10. We're talking about again analysis. So depending on what kind of product you're looking for here, whether you're doing something quantitative or qualitative, you're going to use slightly different approaches. Okay. Now, generally speaking, for all qualitative and all quantitative, they're very similar. And so I've kind of divided it that way. And here for the thematic analysis is the first thing I want to talk to you about. Now, you can read all this, I realize that. So I will breeze through here and then I will give you some examples, or at least one example that we'll sort of work through together. So, a thematic analysis, you can use this for your interview information. You can transcribe it, you can use your notes. You can do this with survey response questions, the open ended questions. If you did sort of an email interview, this might be easier because now you have the text of the response. So this is going to take out a different sort of feel for everyone, but the general idea is that you see it here. A researcher lays out physically on a screen the information taken from the interviews, the questions, whatever, and then you give them what's called a close reading. So you really look carefully for words, phrases, concepts, ideas that are repeated. And so that's this A here, right? So you're looking for these common themes within single interviews, multiple interviews, sets of answers to questions. It really depends on if you're running, a narrative study, a phenomenological study, whatever the qualitative approach you're using is. Now, what I think is best is if you transcribe your interviews, if you've recorded those, but that is a ton of work. Know that. So, I think every 15, there's a equation roughly, but like every 15 minutes of interview is an hour of typing at least. So, keep that in mind. You may just want to use your notes. That's up to you. If you took really good notes, you should be all set. But put that, if it's not already, in a typed format so that you can go and throw it all together in a single document. You can do it like this with Microsoft, or you could use a Google Doc. Either way, go through and make sure that you've got everything sort of there, and everything looks right, it's in order, so you can make sense of it. Then use the find function to search for keywords or phrases that will help you hopefully notice potential themes. So if you see someone say love over and over again, or maybe 3 or 4 times, you might search just love and see how many times it's actually there. That might direct you toward a theme that emerges. Same thing with other terms that could be repeated. Anything that you see sort of continuously used. Now, it may not be the case that, and this is very important, it may not be the case that you're going to be able to make your themes from simple words or a couple of words, phrases, because people may express the same feeling, idea, concept in different words. And so just because something physically, a word, isn't repeated over and over in responses, that doesn't mean there's not a theme there. So, if someone was talking about, I don't know, let's just see if I can pull an example from here. Someone misunderstood something that you said. Okay, so that's called bypassing in communication. So if someone said that, I really don't like it when someone takes what I say the wrong way. Someone else might say, it's aggravating when someone doesn't quite understand me. Someone else might say, I try to make sure I'm in control when people say that I said something I didn't. All of that gets to the same idea of being angry about being misunderstood, but the words were all different. So don't rely only on this word search. Make sure that you're reading everything so that you get a feel for what's there. So you're going to do this a few times. Again, the find function can just be a sort of a starting point. If you need to, reach out to the people who answered the questions, or the interviewees, and ask them for follow-ups. Maybe you noticed something that they alluded to but didn't quite get to saying, and almost everyone else did. You might contact the one person or a couple people that didn't and see if they agree or disagree with what has been noted by the others. That's up to you. I mean, maybe you got everything just completed in that first interview. It's possible. And that's what you want to, just run with. Now, what you can do beyond just the thematic approach is a very specific thematic approach called the constant comparative method. This is from Glaser and Strauss. But what they do is basically everything that we said above, except they do more on the end. So as a theme emerges, let's say it's anger at being misunderstood, what they'll do, they'll review all the notes focusing only on that specific theme, and then they'll do that for every theme, of course. But when they notice it, they'll get all the information together. So it's angry about being misunderstood, and then call the interviewees or get with those folks, email them, and ask about that theme. So is this how you feel? Is it fair to say this? And could you elaborate on this? And then you see there, you add that new information to the existing data to better explain it, or to, talk about how intense it is, or how serious it is, or how angry, or why it's a problem, or how it motivates them to change. Who knows what they're going to say? And then you're going to do that over and over and over again until you feel like everything has been seen that's going to be seen. Everything has been brought to the surface and examined. So with your thematic analysis, you can go really, really deep with this sort of constant comparison method or approach, or you can do more of a general thematic analysis. Now, that doesn't mean that you should just do the word search and here are my themes, because I'll, of course, be reading your stuff too. So if I see other themes, I'm going to highlight those, especially if they're obvious. It'll be like, wait, why didn't you include this? Why didn't you include that? So, don't get stuck by sort of trying to take an easy way out. It'll just cause more work in the long run, because then I'm paying attention to it. I'm going to highlight what they are. And you think, oh, he did the work for me. Yeah, but you're going to have to write about them and explain them and tell me about them. So just go ahead and really be thorough with this analysis, as thorough as you possibly can be. And it's better to have too much and cut some things out than to have just a couple things and it looks, just thrown together, weak, frail. So you can think about how you want to handle this. Now, really quick, let's switch over to here. What I've done is created a couple of examples here. So for a thematic analysis example, let's pretend, if we will, that the study that I was doing looked at how people feel about March Madness and why. I personally love March Madness. It's on my mind. It's happening right now. As you can see, it's Saturday and I'm in my office. That's because I am taking part in a virtual conference and we're on lunch. So missing some games. But let's say that's neither here nor there. That these are the responses I got. The question was simple. How do you feel about March Madness and why? So, person number one said, I love it. Let's see if we can get it out here so we can see all these. I know it's going to be a little tough, but I only did 10. I love it. It's my favorite sporting event of the year. I love the energy and never knowing who will win. So, I'm just going to start taking notes on this. Now, the way I like to do it, and you can do it however you want, I'm going to highlight colors here. So, I'm going to say green is go, so positive. If it's red, it's negative. It's great. I like it because of the bracket competition. Okay, great. So you get a green. I'm not really a basketball fan. Let's do a yellow as a neutral. They didn't say they don't like March Madness. They just don't like basketball in general, so they're not against it. College athletics is slavery. Pay them now. I would bet they probably don't like March Madness very much. So we will code that. You know what, just for clarity's sake, let's just code anything that's not positive as red. Some of my favorite memories are of watching March Madness with my dad. Good times. So that's a favorable response. It's the most wonderful time of the year because it's college and it's sports. What's not to love? Agreed. I dated a guy who used to never answer the phone during March Madness. It's garbage to me. That's a negative. It's okay. I like the NBA better and wish they would use the bracket system. It's fun to do at work. The bracket system. So this one, it's okay. I can't really put that in, a positive or negative. So I have to put that in a general. I know nothing about basketball, but I won my office pool once just by picking my favorite colors. So I say bring it on. That feels positive to me. Thrilling. I love the underdogs, and at least a few underdogs always seem to have that Cinderella story during March Madness, don't they, though? So here we go. We can say from just this that we have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 positive comments, 3 negative comments, and 1 neutral comment. So, looking at it now, thinking about this 1 out of place comment, I'm going to code it as positive because it's fun to do at work. Seems to tell me that it's not bad. So then we have 7 positives and 3 negatives. That works. Now let's go through a little bit deeper and see what other themes emerge, just from a general liking to a dislike. I love it. It's my favorite sporting event of the year. I love the energy and never knowing who will win. So let's just type some words that come out here. So it's your favorite. Whoops, I don't really want this. Go ahead. No color. Okay, I'll change it in a minute. Favorite, and let's see, energy. Sorry, I just want to make these a little clearer. Energy, and then never knowing who will win. So there's sort of like a surprise or, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a suspense. Yeah, I know. Okay, let's get rid of that. It's great. I like it because of the bracket competition. So for this person, it's the bracket competition. Okay. This person that didn't like it, I'm not really a basketball fan. So that one's kind of just in general, not a fan of the sport. Not a fan of sport. College athletics is slavery. Pay them now. So we have sort of this moral opposition. Again, by the way, there's no right or wrong way to do this necessarily. I mean, there's this process that I'm showing you, but in terms of like moral opposition, you could call that a few different things: ethical, dilemma, or um, invoked slavery, if that's what jumps out at you, a need for payment. There's different ways to sort of code this. So I'm going to put moral opposition and need pay. Some of my favorite memories are watching this with my dad. Good times. So and then we'll put like a personal memory. This is the way I would code it anyway. It's the most wonderful time of the year because it's college and it's sports. What's not to love? Okay, so it is. I think we've already used the word favorite, so I'm going to reuse that because the most wonderful time of the year, you could say, is their favorite time of the year. College and sports combo is what this person said. Okay, so let's take that out. I dated a guy once who never answered the phone, never answered the phone during this. It's garbage to me. So again, this is a personal memory. It just happens to be negative this time. It's okay. I don't like the NBA, or I like the NBA better. I wish they'd use the bracket system. It's fun to do at work. So this one feels like there is some indifference. The next thing that jumps out to me is it is the bracket and fun at work. Next up, I know nothing about basketball, but I won my office pool once just by picking my favorite color. So I say bring it on. So it's this, again, I think fun at work would work again. Sorry. And last but not least, thrilling. Love underdogs. Okay, so we're going to say thrilling, jumped out, underdogs, and then Cinderella story. Yeah. Candela. There we go. Okay. Let's see what we have here now. This is probably where you'll want to start taking some different notes and keeping up with that. Let me do this. Let's do a new document. No, I don't want you to be there. I don't want you to be here either. Whoops, that's not what I needed. Sorry, I'm trying to get us side by side. Here we go. There we go. Now, get myself out the way. So over here, favorite, energy, surprise, or suspense. So let me make this list here. Favorite, there's energy, there's surprise. I'm going to call that the same thing, surprise, suspense. We have bracket. We're going to do all the pros first, or the favorables. Let's see. Favorable. What else do we have here? Personal memory. We have another favorite, so let's just do a tick mark up here. Got one of those. You can use whatever you like to mark that with an X. It doesn't matter. College and sports. What's next? Bracket again. So we're going to go ahead and mark that. And then fun at work. Whoops. Another Fun at Work. And then last is the Underdog Cinderella. So a thrilling, and then Underdog Cinderella. If you're not familiar, Cinderella stories that these things are low ranked teams that end up doing really well. You probably know that, but just in case. Okay, now, what about unfavorable? A couple of those as well. So we have non-sports fan. We have moral opposition. I think we could even just say in the form of payment. And a personal memory. Okay, so what we have here now are pretty laid out potential themes. These aren't our final themes, but they're potential. What we should do next is continue to look at these a little closer and see, okay, well, Fun at Work was repeated. So we're going to go ahead and highlight that one because that's one we probably want to use. Good. We have brackets. People liked that. It was their favorite. Now, the next part of this is where you get to really have some freedom. Here's exactly how my mind would work if I were looking at this. What I want to do is get these responses combined as much as I can. So what I am thinking that I will do is I will say, okay, well, when I think of energy, surprise goes along with that. That's part of the energy of the March Madness tournament, is that it's always going to be a surprise who's going to win. That's why we play these games, So there's that sort of energetic surprise. And then I also saw thrilling, right? So thrilling. Okay. And then I think part of that surprise is going to be underdogs. So we can go ahead and put that here. And you can note this however you want. This is just, I won't ever see this part of your work. You're just going to, tell me about it in the paper. Energy, surprise because of underdogs, which makes it thrilling. So we'll take this out. And really, man, I'm going to even go as far as to say this could only happen, or it does only happen, in college sports. So I'm going to take this out. Now, what we're left with here are the themes that we already had, and this personal memory. Notice something. We have a personal memory in favor of this. Let's do a different color. And we have a personal memory in opposition to this. That's important, and we'll come back to that. But here we have non-sports fans and moral oppositions. That's it. I think this is about as clean as we can make this. And so for me, your themes would be that it's many people's favorite. In fact, 2 of our 10 respondents, 2 of the 7 positives, said that this was their favorite sporting event of the year. 2 folks of those 7 positives also said one of the reasons it's so great is because of the use of the bracket. And 2 of those 7 also said that this is something fun to do at work. You can do it with your colleagues, like an office pool. Now, another big reason that this was a favorable thing is because of the energy that goes along with March Madness. And so you could call this a few different things. I'm not going to use any of these. I'm going to say it is a unique and supercharged event. That's what I'm going to call it right there. Again, people will name this different stuff, but then I'll be able to explain what I mean by that by using these terms. Done. Now, one person said that they like as a personal memory. I'm not going to include that because it's only one. I'm not going to include it yet, I should say. Then I go down to unfavorable. And we see 2 major reasons why people didn't like March Madness. Some of them just weren't sports fans. And so it's nothing against March Madness, but they probably weren't going to watch sports anyway. And then the second big reason was that there's a moral opposition to college sports in general, and they see it as a form of slavery, this plantation material or mindset that can often go along with the free labor that comes from college athletes. So we could include that. Those would be two unfavorable categories or themes. Then we could say a unique theme emerged, and that was the liking or disliking of March Madness based on personal memories or experiences. One person said this, blah, blah, blah. The other person said this. So, for different reasons and different directions, people love or hate this sometimes because of the things they associate it with, right? Memories of your dad, great, good times, or that boyfriend that wouldn't answer his phone, bad times. So again, this is one way you can do this. It's the way my mind works. It's the way I've done it before. And so, yeah, I would say do something similar to this. If you've never done it before, follow this model, and you should be in pretty good shape. Okay, next up, let me bring this guy back over, maybe. Let's see if we can do this. Okay. Next up is a content analysis. And here's an example of that. So let's say that this particular content analysis is focused on media reporting on immigration from the southern border, right? So we want to see if these news stories are favorable, neutral, or against immigrants coming across the southern border. And we can label that in a very specific way. Now, this is again something that you're going to get to do, and there's not a strong correct or incorrect way. Now, it needs to be logical. If someone reads what you have and say, well, that doesn't make sense to divide it that way, that's not great. So you want to make sure that you are using categories that make sense to use, and that the way you've defined them is clear and it makes them usable, right? So here with an anti-immigrant story, we would say it's when the article is generally hostile towards immigrants, unsympathetic to immigrant issues, and or paints immigrants as a negative part of the nation or culture. Go to 3 because it's just the opposite. Pro-immigrant stories are articles that are generally favorable toward immigrants, sympathetic to their issues, and or paints immigrants in a positive part of our nation or culture. And then if they're neutral, shows minimal hostility or favorability towards immigrants. It's more just facts. So what you might do then is create what we called the code book. Remember? This is what that might look like here. Just simple, a simple code book where you have, okay, the news source, the date the story was written, the title of the story, your evaluation, which we don't know yet, and what's called an exemplar, or a key phrase or passage from the article that you think sort of is the thesis. It summarizes the entirety of that article. And so let's look at these. Based on our evaluation criteria, which are up here, we're going to give these all a mark. So the first one's from CNN. Here's the date. Immigration crisis in full swing. Immigrants come to add to the United States, not take away anything more than the American dream. So they add to our culture. Well, it seems like that would be here, right? They're a positive thing. So we're going to call this pro. Fox News, here's the date. Title, Rush of Immigrants bring COVID to our border. The southern border is acting as a maskless blower of infection. I don't know about you, but when I think of something blowing infection, it's pretty negative. Breitbart, America's alien problem. By definition, all illegal aliens are criminals and should be treated as such. That's pretty clearly anti as well. You can even just say that the word alien might give that one away. Whereas the other ones, at least this says immigrants, so that's not giving it away yet. You have to sort of read more. An NPR article, immigrants stuck at the border seek justice and humanity. Asylum seekers are entering the U.S. legally, but still being turned away. So we could make the decision there. Maybe we need to reread the article, but I could see this being pro or neutral because it doesn't, say anything positive or negative. It's just the facts. So I'm going to call this neutral. Washington Post, immigrants show no signs of stopping. And you might think, no, stop, those are negative. This must be anti. Wait, the immigration rate has remained steady over the past 3 years. Again, not saying that it's good or bad that it's stayed that way, but it's just the facts. And then last from ABC News, border crossings dangerous for immigrants and Americans. And we see people crossing the border understand the risks involved from both the elements and the law. So again, it's not saying that they're great or terrible. It's just saying that they understand the risks. So with that one, that could also be considered, I think, neutral. So with this all in mind, the next step would simply be based on what you're trying to find out. So, if you wanted to look at all articles within a certain time period that you can find that deal with immigration. I know this is just an example, so there's not that many, but you could go through and just count up pro, anti, and neutral, and that might be enough. You might want to go further and say that neutral articles, you can look over here, don't do any, they don't advocate for or argue against, they just tell you the facts. Anti articles, maybe a theme that comes out of here is language use, like aliens, or this expressive sort of incendiary language. These people are causing a blower of infection, right? So it's maybe the rhetoric being used, and that could be then used to explain maybe things like violent acts against people because you're making it sound like they're trying to kill everyone in the country. And then positives, immigrants come to add to the U.S., not take away anything more than the American dream. So with that one, you might say there's only one pro article here, but this could be something like, the value of immigrants, that we need immigrants so that we can bring more to our country. And they just want a shot at the dream, and don't we all? Right? So again, I don't know if you need to go further than just how many pros and cons. You could go really into this and sort of do a anti, neutral, and pro, but then in every one be like strongly anti, somewhat anti. Neutral stays neutral, somewhat pro, extremely pro, whatever you want to do. But again, this is one way that might look. All right. Okay. I'm sorry, I got to check the time so I can jump back on my virtual conference. Okay, sorry, excuse the disjointedness there. Had to go back to the conference, but let's get back to it. So, first of all, we've covered qualitative approaches at this point. And let's find, where did that go? Right there. So we've covered the qualitative approaches with thematic analysis, constant comparative method being the advanced thematic analysis. We talked about content analysis. Now let's move to statistical testing. And don't worry if this seems like one of those topics that make you just want to, turn it off. Don't wait. I'll show you best I can to make it easy. And of course, like always, I'm here to help. So whether it is with qualitative or quantitative, let me know. But sometimes you'll want to know different things based on your numbers, based on surveys. So let me show you what this may look like. I think, did I put it behind it again? We'll get it in a minute. Let's do this. Okay. Now we'll blow this up, and then we'll slide over here, and we should have this. Where's the other part? Don't see the data set. There it is. Nope, just kidding. Well, maybe it's down there. Yep. Okay. So here we have a data set. Let's say that you had a survey where you handed it out and it said, what is your height? What is your shoe size? What is your IQ? Assuming people knew all these. And then, are you male or female? What is your ethnicity with a variety of choices? And then please write in your age. Okay. You want to know if there's a relationship between these dependent variables, height, shoe size, and IQ, and these independent variables, sex, ethnicity, and age. Now, here's how I remember the difference between those two types. A dependent variable will change. It's going to vary as you know learn things or change your opinions. Your dependent variables will change, just like depending on the type of test you take, your IQ might change, or depending on the brand of shoes, your shoe size might change. Height, maybe it's the measurement tool you're using. This also, if we're doing social science, would be like your attitude toward a politician or toward a social media platform. You strongly favor it, or you favor it, somewhat favor it, those sorts of things on a Likert scale. Um, for us, we're going just to use this as an example. And I want to take you over to variable view because you see that we have these scale categories because those are numbers that are going in. Then we have these two are nominal, meaning name. And so, for example, on sex, if I click, whoops, well, that's for ethnicity. But you see how I've got this laid out. There's 6 options here, and folks could pick whichever one they identify as. Same thing here. We have male and female. And again, that's sex, not gender. That's why there's only 2 choices. So let's jump back over here and say the first thing we want to know, where did it go now? Here it is that we want to know if there's a correlation between 2 variables. So if there's a relationship, in other words. Now, what a correlation means is that you could highlight positive or negative relationships. Positive just means that as one thing goes up, the other thing goes up. So as your height or your age goes up, your shoe size might go up, or your height. Something could have a negative relationship, and that just means they go in opposite directions. So as your age goes up, your IQ might go down. I doubt it, but still, that would be a negative relationship. Now, again, positive relationships can both go up or both go down. It's just about going the same way. So let's check and see what we find here. Let's do analyze, correlate, bivariate. So we want 2 things, bi meaning 2, of course. So we want height will work, and we want age. So let's see what options they give us. Means and standard deviations. Style doesn't much matter. Nope. All right. You can forget the other details, but we'll just check this. And we see here that we have a significance value on both of these for 0.016. The thing to remember here is that if it's below 0.05, it is considered significant. If it's above 0.05, it is insignificant. And what that really means is that if it's above 0.05, there is a chance that the relationship you're seeing is just by chance alone. There may not be a real relationship. It may just be that this group happens to go that way. If it is significant below 0.05, that means that there is for example here, a 0.016 or a 1.6% chance that these 2 things aren't related. They're definitely related. Or if you want to think of it the other way, 98.4. So what you'll see here is that we have a correlation. And if you look at this Pearson number, 0.6, what they're telling you is that 60.7% of the time, these 2 things increase or decrease the same, right? So we know that they increase or decrease the same way 60% of the time, and that there is a 1% chance that that's happening by accident. So let's see how that might look if we visualize it. I'm just going to go to Chart Builder. Yeah, okay. Let's do a line graph. So we'll go here, just real simple. And on one axis, we will let's put the height down here. And then let's put age right here. And we'll see how that looks. Okay, so if you look at it this way, I know it might look like, the hell is that? That's a terrible heartbeat. Somebody's dying. But what you'll see is that we have height across the bottom. So here's 7 feet tall. And then we have the age over here. That's going from small to large or young to old. And what we're noticing, let's just take this first block here, If you are below 10 years old, you might be below 4 feet tall. Not too, outrageous. This is more of a scatter here, so there's multiple points. But the big thing to remember is if you put a dot here and you put a dot here and you drew a line through that, you would see that there's a progression of increase in both. Just to see it a different way, let's do chart builder one more time. Okay, yep. And now let's just move these over and put them on the other axis. Let's see how it looks now. Again, dot here, we see that continual growth. And now we've got height on this side and age over here. So whichever way you like to see it, it doesn't matter. But that will tell you if you have a correlation. So now let's go back here and do another test. Actually, let's jump over here and let me tell you about it. So let's do a t-test next. A t-test is the way that you would compare two groups. And this could be men and women. It could be, sort of cats and dogs. It could be pre-test and post-test groups, depending on what kind of research you did. Now, if you did a survey, you probably want to focus on those demographic questions, male, female, that kind of thing. If you did a experiment, then you want to look at pre-test, post-test in group 1, group 2. So we will check that out. Now, what I will tell you before we go over there is you can only do one t-test per sort of project. If you do more than one t-test, you want to compare multiple pairs of things, you need to use an ANOVA, and that will come next. But for now, let's do a t-test. So analyze, we want to compare means, and you'll see that we have one sample, independent, summary, paired. We want independent because these two groups are completely independent. So there are no males in the female category or females in the male, or African Americans in the Caucasian or Caucasian and African American. These are mutually exclusive categories. So we'll do an independent sample. And let's see, let's look at IQ. We'll do a little controversial here. IQ, and we want to do it by sex. When you click this, just put a 1 and a 2 in these boxes. I'm not sure why it wants you to do that. We'll go to options. That looks fine. Let's test it. We'll come here. No, nothing significant. So this tells us that there is no significant difference between men and women's IQs. And remember, it says 0.93, which means there's a 93% chance that differences are just that, due to chance. That's it. Really, it's pretty amazing when you think about it, that we're 93% sure there's not a difference between men and women's IQs. Let's do one where there will be a difference. Let's do, again, compare means, independent samples t-test. This time we're going to take this out and we're going to put in height. See what we get. Now we see a significant difference, 0.02, 0.03. Don't worry about which one to use. And we see up here the mean height for males, 5.8 feet versus 4.8 feet for women. So a foot difference, basically. Now, again, this is because there were various ages, and so, it ranged. But if those were our two numbers that we had, then we could say there is a significant difference between the height of males and females in this particular study. All right, nothing too groundbreaking there. Maybe, though, we want to know about height, shoe size, and IQ all at the same time based on sex. Let's do it. So with that one, we would do compare means in a one-way ANOVA. So here, the factor or the grouping variable will be sex. And we want to know if there's a difference between height, shoe size, and IQ based on sex. So let's see. Don't worry about post hocs and understanding what they do, but always just click on Tukey. Take a stats class, but for us, that's all we really need. And always add in the descriptives if possible. And means plots are nice too. Let's test it. Let's see what we found here. So here are the descriptives. So we'll see height, male average, female average, shoe size, male, female, IQ, male, female. And we come down here and we look at the significance levels. We see that we have a significant difference here. We already knew that. That was height, same as before. We see a very significant difference here, 0.001, and that's shoe size. And we see that the average man is a 10.7, the average woman is a 5.1 for this study. And then we see IQ, 0.93, which we got earlier. There was no difference. And we see 123.3, 123.7. There's no difference there. Okay, so that would be a stronger t-test if you wanted to test the difference between this group, and this group based on sex. Don't run multiple t-tests, run one ANOVA. Now, the other position you might find yourself in is that you want to compare all of the dependent variables, height, shoe size, and IQ, to all of the independent variables, sex, ethnicity, and age. For that one, we need to do what's called a MANOVA. And if we jump over here, a MANOVA is just that. It's a very strong ANOVA so that we can see more things. They call it power. More powerful the test, the better when you're trying to find out as much as you can. So what this does that's a little different though, since it does allow for multiple independent variables, is that it will show you if there is what's known as a main effect, or one independent variable causing change on some dependent variable, or if there's what's known as an interaction effect, where when you combine two of these independent variables, that has an impact on a dependent variable. It could be the case that it doesn't matter if you are African American or Caucasian. It doesn't have an effect on this dependent variable. Let's say height. It doesn't matter if you are male or female on height. That's all the same. But what if you combine those two, and what if that makes a difference? The combination of ethnicity and sex. That happens sometimes. So let's see if we find any differences there. To do that, we'll do analyze. This time we're going to go with general linear model, multivariate, just like MANOVA. The M is for multi-analysis of variance. So multivariate. Let's do all of our dependent variables and then all of our fixed factors, or fixed, not changing, independent variables, not changing. And then let's do some plots. Nah, let's not do a plot. We'll do post hocs for all of these. Remember, just put them over and click Tukey. Okay, options, do descriptives. Let's do observed estimates of effect size. See if there's anything else. Nah. See what we get. Here we go. So these are all descriptives. Oh, by the way, here are those ANOVA charts. And you'll see height, there was a big difference, 5'8" to 4'8". Shoe size, almost 11 to just over 5. And then you might see this and think, boy, that looks significant. Yeah, but look, 123.4, 123.7. So no. Now, for the MANOVA here, we have lots of descriptive data. So it's going to give you mean scores, standardized, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, it gives you lots of values there, but those aren't so important to us. We want to come over and see this significant category here to see if any of these made a difference. Now, what we're seeing is that these didn't get tested in this particular part of the MANOVA. These did, and it shows us that there was no significant difference for sex, none for ethnicity, and none for age. So that seems like no main effects if you want to think about it that way. When we come down here, we will look back again at this, and we see that there's some in the intercept here, but that's sort of just a way to tell you that these are two different groups. But pay attention to just sex, ethnicity, and age, because it'll show you the comparisons, and you see nothing was significant there. If you come on down, still nothing. Multiple comparisons, the significant number here, there was, again, nothing significant. So let's see what else we have. descriptives. I want to look at one other thing. This is a little strange because there should be a difference here between sex and height and shoe size because we found that in the other one. Huh. It is indicating something is significant, so I'm not sure exactly why that would be the case. So let's see, shoe size, that's by ethnicity. It's very strange. Let's try, see what we got down here. Okay. Let me open up something else here. Sample. This is another data set that I've used in the past. So this is the PRCA24. So here I've got the condition, pre-test or post-test, class. I just had 2 sections of speech, male, female for sex, and then the score. Let's run these and see what we get. Analyze, general linear, MANOVA. We want these 3 to be our fixed factors, and we want this one to be our dependent variable. And I'm realizing that this is the wrong test for that. So let's jump back out, do one more thing here. We'll do general linear model univariate. And now the dependent, since there's only one, we'll go there. Condition, class, and sex will go here. And let's do post hocs for all 3. Well, actually, there's no point in doing it for sex or class because there's only 2. None of these are really any good because there's only 2 conditions, 2 classes, and 2 sexes. So we don't need to do that here. But we will do some options, descriptives, and let's have estimated effect sizes. And that'll do for now. Okay, let's see what we get. So again, here's all the descriptives. Then we come down and we look and we see sex is important somewhere in here is what we're seeing. So let's go down and find out what is happening here. So for the score, sex made a difference on the anxiety levels of the students. So if we go to, we don't need preconditions. Sex mean score. So let's see. These are sometimes a little tricky to read. Total male, female. So here, males scored a 20, females scored a 23, indicating they are more anxious in the pre-test. In the post-test, males scored a 20, females scored a 23. So yeah, that's all the same. Now, what we'll see there is that is a significant difference according to this number here, because that's going with sex. If we see condition plus class, nope, didn't matter, nothing there. Class and sex, nope, didn't matter. This over here, partial eta, just means how confident we are in our confidence. I know. If you think of it a different way, and you look over here, 0.224. That means that these 3 factors, condition, sex, and class, explain 22% of the variance, or 22% of why these things are different for males and females. But that's just what it would look like if we were doing this and had a significant finding. I'm not sure what happened on our example. Let's just close this. Whoops, I don't really want to save that. No, let's close this. Now let's go here and do the last one, which is a regression analysis, which is a way to predict. Now, again, I know I mentioned that, you can't predict the future. That's with COVID normally, because that's something we've not experienced before. If we have a track record of the way things have been in the past, that's what statistics uses to figure out what things will do in the future. And that's using a regression analysis. So if we go back here one more time, this is the last one. Analyze, and we did general linear model. Make sure that I'm on the right deal here. Generalize, no, regression. Here we go. Linear regression. Now, if we want to, the dependent variable is, let's say we want it to be height. Great. And the independent variables, we want to be sex and ethnicity. And we don't need to worry about those. Let's go to statistics, estimates, R squared, descriptives. Okay, plots, and options. Okay, let's see what we get. All right, so here we've got the descriptives, and then we've got correlations. So there's your Pearsons, right? There's a negative relationship between sex and ethnicity. So when it comes to, what do we do? Height? Yeah, when it comes to height. So if we come down, we're going to see the model summary. We've explained 66% of the variance. Change, don't worry about the change significance. What we really need to look at is right here. So a 0.3 means there was a significant relationship between these variables. And if we look at the coefficients, we see ethnicity did not make a big difference in prediction, but sex did make a big impact in prediction of height. And so that's the way that would work. So that would tell you, okay, if I am going to try to measure or predict who's going to be taller, men or who's individuals and their height, should I look at their ethnicity or should I look at their sex? Now it's obvious, right? You want to look at their sex because men are taller than women on average. And that's what we're seeing here. And so again, this could be Greek to a lot of folks. I get it. To me, it's fun. It's like solving a puzzle. But if that's not for you, that's fine. If you still want to do this kind of research, let me know again, and that's what we will do. But by now you should already have decided what kind you're going to do. And I hope this was helpful. If not, again, let me know. I'm here to help. We can get on, share the screen, run your numbers. I will have you enter your data so that doesn't take up an hour of my day. But once you get that in, I'm happy to help you make sense of it all. Okay. Last thing I'll say is about your results section, which will be next week. Remember, when you write this up, you're not going to comment on your findings. Just tell us your findings. This should be the shortest part of your paper. You see it right there. This should be the shortest section of the whole paper. Don't discuss what they mean, who they impact, what they are. Just tell us what the results were. And then in the next section, next week, discussion and conclusion, then we'll talk about how we're going to discuss what the findings mean. But those are two separate sections, so make sure you keep those separated. Sorry for the jump in the middle, kind of doing things on the fly here. But again, as always, if you have questions, let me know. I'm here to help no matter what kind of research you're doing, and I hope to see you soon.